There are tons of different items in Minecraft, each with a different name and use. Every item also has a little description, a box underneath it telling you a bit about it. For a sword, it tells you the name and the damage, and a potion could tell you what effects it gives, and so on and so forth. But this raises the very important question, what is the longest item description possible in Minecraft? Let's start with some basics first. Before we go any further, we should try to find the longest item name in Minecraft. There are a few close contenders like the waxed, lightly weathered cut copper or the polished blackstone pressure plate, which both total to 34 characters, but the longest is actually the waxed, lightly weathered cut copper stair, which totals to 41 characters, even longer than the rename limit of an anvil. Pressing F3 and H at the same time opens up the Advanced Tooltips menu, largening the box of any item we have. In this case, it doesn't show much about the stair because there isn't much to show, but doubles the text box plus adds an additional 10 characters for the Minecraft colon. This gives us a pretty lengthy total of 92 characters, and that's not too bad, but we can do much, much better. Obviously, certain items will have different attributes that will show up in the item description. For example, what about enchantments? In creative mode, you can enchant items freely, putting sharpness on your sticks or thorns on your banners. However, we'll be focusing solely on survival for the time being, and trust me, it is way more than enough. When using enchantments and anvils, we run into a problem quite quickly. Adding a certain number of enchantments to our sword eventually makes it too expensive for the anvil. Why is this? How do we bypass it? And also, what tool do we actually use in the first place? Let's answer the third one first. Technically, the netherite pickaxe has the longest name of any tool. However, it doesn't have too many enchantments that can stack on it. For tools, the most optimizable winner is the netherite axe, to which we can apply a whole variety of enchantments. Picking the longest named ones as well as the correct level, obviously 3 as it's 3 characters as opposed to maybe 5, that's just 1v, we are left with this combination. A netherite axe with efficiency 3, bane 3, curse of vanishing, silk touch, unbreaking 3, and mending. This doubles our total for the longest block and totals to 182 characters. We can even bump it up a bit more by mining a block and having the advanced tooltips display the durability as well, pushing it over the edge and into the 200s at a total of 205 characters. To combine this, by the way, you add the enchantments in a sort of tree fashion, which avoids the too expensive rule. But that's just the longest tool. The netherite sword is even better. The combination for the longest sword is as follows. Bane 3, Unbreaking 3, Mending, Sweeping Edge 3, Looting 3, Knockback 2, Fire Aspect 2, and Curse of Vanishing. Using, again, durability, we get a whopping 240 characters of item description. That's long, but there's one more category of enchantable items. Armor. Once again, technically, the netherite chestplate has the longest name, but there's a larger variety of enchantments that can be put on the netherite helmet. These are Unbreaking 3, Aqua Affinity, Curse of Binding, Curse of Vanishing, Mending, Respiration 3, Thorns 3, and Prot 3. Again, using it, and we're left with a massive 257 total characters. That's certainly very long, and we can rename the item to 35 characters, the limit of an anvil, and achieve 276 total characters for a max helmet. But of course, as we all know, enchantments aren't the only thing that can take up an item description. For instance, banners. When you add a design to a banner, the patterns display in the item description. The limit for designs is 6 layers, but that's plenty of room because banner patterns have really weird names. I mean, look at some of them. Chief Dexter Canton, Per Ben Sinister Inverted? How do they think of these? And it's actually the latter that's the longest possible banner pattern at 37 characters just on its own. The base of the banner should also be optimized, and for that we can select either light gray or light blue, which are the 2 longest color names in Minecraft. It doesn't matter which one you use, so I'll use light blue for the base and light gray for the Per Ben Sinister Inverted. You may think that stacking 2 Per Ben Sinister Inverteds doesn't do anything, and you'd be completely wrong, it actually doubles in the item description. For some reason, this leads us to a 279 character description, just 3 longer than the helmet, but still our new winner. The next contender is one you wouldn't really expect. Shulker boxes. I'll be honest, I didn't think they'd perform well either, but I was very wrong. You see, Shulker boxes actually give a slight preview of the contents inside them, and we can take full advantage of this by filling a Shulker box with at minimum 15 stacks of the longest item name, which we found previously was the waxed, lightly weathered cut copper stairs from before. And of course, make the Shulker box light blue or light gray as well to optimize it even further. This, along with all the other text underneath, gives us 304 total characters in the item description, 317 if you rename the Shulker box to the max limit. That's long. Very long. Before we get into the absolute absurdity possible with commands, let's try out one more idea I had. Fireworks. In their description, fireworks display the patterns they have set up, so how long can it get? Going into this website, it generates us the crafting recipe of any firework that we want. Choosing the longest pattern name, color names, and other variables, we get the crafting recipe for the longest firework. Here are the steps on screen if you're interested. The end product looks something like this. It goes off screen. However, it's actually a bit misleading because while it may be very long, it isn't very tall. Calculating it, we end up with a measly 234 characters. That's certainly alright, but not even close to the Shulker boxes. But there's one deus ex machina for the fireworks. What this otherwise great website fails to mention is that fireworks can have more than one explosion. If we go back to the last step of the crafting, we can add more firework stars. They don't have to be identical, but the more you add, the more different explosions there will be, but we can just have the same one as it's already optimized. You can add a maximum of 7 firework stars, leading to 7 different identical explosions. And holy crap, is it massive. 1,032 characters of item firework description. It takes up literally more than half of my screen. If you watched my last video on the longest possible death message, you would know that we can actually change language to Tamil to make the writing even longer, and also rename the fireworks to 35 of the longest ASCII character. However, for this video we're only focusing on character length for the time being, so it's not too important the actual paragraph length. To my knowledge, this 1,032 character behemoth is the limit of survival mode item description. But with commands, it gets even more absurd. There are tons of ways to increase item description with commands, so I'll quickly name a few. In creative, you can actually add every compatible enchantment to an item, leading to something like this. Yes, we can use the god Firework to make it even longer, but with the stair alone, we total 478 characters, which is less than half of the Firework, but that's just with one stair. Also, funnily enough, the last combination of this anvil actually costs 134 million levels to complete. Thank god I'm in creative. Another way to increase the length of an item box is using the lore. Using commands, you can add tiny stories to your items, or lore. Lore is great for adventure map makers and also for us. Assuming the limit of a command block is 32,500 characters as listed in the Minecraft wiki, in theory we should be able to have around 32,000 characters of lore, which would look something like this. Sadly, it stretches instead of goes down, so we can't witness its true glory, but it is there. The final and funnest way to increase the length is just to generate a firework with commands. With this method, you can have way more than 7 explosions, and while I don't know the actual limit, I assume it's very, very high. Using a different website, which will also be linked below, we can easily add explosions and generate a command for a very, very long firework. Sadly, the description looks pretty much the same, but if we had a slot all the way to the right of our inventory, it would take up our entire screen. Doing some basic math, we can find that the total item description would be around 17,000 characters. Not as long as the lore, actually half the lore, but still a massive number. But with all that said, that wraps up today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please do consider subscribing, it really helps out a ton. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and as always, peace out, have a good one. Thank you so much.